I'd like to call to order the Zero Waste Subcommittee on December 8th at 1:34 p.m. We have Commissioner Sacco and Commissioner Ward here and myself. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda? All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Sacco and a second by Commissioner Ward for approval of the agenda. All of them in favor say aye. Aye. All right. Any opposed? No. Motion passes 3-0 with Commissioner Ariola absent. All right. No minutes, so I'm on the wrong agenda. Sorry. We do have minutes. Is there a second? All right. Motion to approve the minutes. Motion made by Commissioner Ward and second by Commissioner Sacco. Is there any public comment either here in the chambers or online for the approval of the minutes? Nothing.
Okay, we do have some, oh, I'm sorry.
No,
we
go
do
ahead.
have some community members in the Zoom here. So community members, if you want to speak to this item, if you would use the raise your hand feature in Zoom or dial *9 on your phone.
And the item is approval of the minutes.
Correct. Do we also need to approve the agenda, or
We've
was
already
that already
done that.
done? Okay. I do not see any hands raised.
All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes 3-0 with Commissioner Ariola absent. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Yes, we have item number 200449, presentation of construction and demolition debris ordinance recommendations. And the recommendation is that the Zero Waste Subcommittee hear staff presentation and provide direction as appropriate.
All right, thank you. And then we discussed this about a month ago and then asked for staff to come back. So staff, who's going to take the lead on this one?
Good afternoon. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, yeah, so we, based on the feedback from the last presentation and some discussion after that, we've come up with some recommendations to move forward with some ordinances and policies going forward with the construction and demolition debris. First off, we believe that the recycling rate should be set at 75% by weight. I think this subcommittee had pretty much agreed upon that during the meeting, and we would like to move forward with that. The other option is to continue to keep that in a level that's more traditional, some of the ordinance that we found throughout the United States, and that's around 50%. We also talked about deposits and the need for higher deposits to ensure that the recycling plans are carried through and that they actually occur. We've come up with these numbers, projects over $1 million, $50,000 deposit, 500,000, 10,000, and smaller ones, maybe $25,000. This would be, as far as we can tell, the highest amount for deposits for construction and demolition recycling ordinances in the country. We haven't seen anything quite that high. Some other options is.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Some other options is we could have lower rates similar to what Lee County does. Also, I did have a general 1 million plus. With projects getting bigger and more expensive, we may want to add additional tiers onto that.
So I know on the last point, or the minimum $100,000 or more, I know some ordinances are less, and why the 100,000, or was it just because it was a round number in terms of?
Yeah, it was a round number, and maybe with those smaller projects, we may not want to go with anything or even a lower fee on that, since they're not that big of projects. So yeah, I was just kind of throwing in a minimum level there.
Okay. And then as far as the deposits, is that a cash deposit, or do they do like a bond, or I guess it depends on larger ones, probably are more likely bond than.
Yeah, they tend to be bonds and part of the performance bond that we can include. So we can work with sustainable development on that and developing the specifications on what would be an appropriate deposit.
Okay. And how would it, so if they do not follow the law, I guess the laws that we set out, they would lose either all of their deposit or a portion of the deposit? Is that how it kind of works, or how?
Yeah. So we can set up different thresholds as to a percentage that which can be taken. And considering that they probably wouldn't go with a performance bond, they would probably go with the cash bond, so they wouldn't want to hurt their credit. So I would think that as we work that ordinance out, we would probably allow for some different ways to secure that deposit.
All right, thank you.
So what we would do is also kind of help the developers. We would develop some spreadsheets that would allow them to help them determine what the amount of debris that they can expect from their operation. And we can help them identify processing locations. And then that report would require monthly reporting, and we'd establish things like that. Especially for the larger projects, I feel like it would be good to continue to get updates from them on the progress they're making as far as their recycling. And then on the smaller projects, that could just be an end of project operation. So the other option would be just to get their disposal tickets at the end and, try to confirm whether they've met the plan or not. Our other recommendation is to require, as part of our franchise agreement, that the C&D haulers independently report on the C&D projects to the city. So this would give the city a second source of information to ensure compliance with the ordinance. And we could add that into our franchise agreement going forward, probably when we reissue our ordinances in October. Other than that, we can just rely on the contractor for reporting. So we also have some future work to do. We've started to initiate some development of information about what is historical in the community and what we can do about preserving buildings, as we discussed previously. We'll still need to reach out to the Preservation Board and others to get more information about that. We started some research into existing legislation, other tax benefits in other communities relating to moving homes and things like that. And then with reuse, and we'll discuss that a little bit more in the reuse subject, what is the capacity and demand for some of these deconstructed items like doors and windows and whatnot, and whether there's enough capacity in the community to handle those materials. So I'll delve into that a little bit more in the reuse presentation. Also, as we discussed,
I do have one question, Mr. Buck.
Sure.
Commissioner Ward?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know that this is the right time to do it or not, but I really want us to have discussion about preservation, because I mean that's the ultimate reuse. I mean it's fine for us to discuss what to do with the pieces of the building once it's been torn down, and it's a good thing to move buildings if there's going to be something new built in their stead. But if we can keep things in place, sometimes that certainly is the best step we could take. The problem is, it's really hard. It's much harder to borrow money to renovate and to rebuild than it is to bulldoze and start over. So our place in that, I think, going forward is how do we help folks access money to renovate? That's a different way of thinking about it. We don't do that currently, and I don't think many communities do. But making money available to renovate in place is money saved, I think, in the long term for the community, and then certainly resources saved in the long term. And this is not the place to have that big discussion, but I do want to put a pin in it. I don't want that to go by. And frankly, I don't know that Historic Preservation Board is necessarily the right board to have that conversation. I think it's a financial issue. And something that we ought to bring some alternatives forward from this board or from this subcommittee before we just move past it. Don't need to do it right now, but I did want to put a pin in it. Thank you.
Commissioner Sacco?
Just because Commissioner Ward brought it up now, I do think, I agree that it's a financial issue, and whether one of our recommendations for preservation could be low interest or zero interest loans to preserve those projects, and that, if that is something that we could do, whether they be microloans or whatnot, to make smaller renovations. So, as an idea. Thank you.
Yeah, and we did with the, at least for historic buildings in the CRA district, we did do as part of the facade grant, I think they can eligible to $150,000 or $250,000 in grant money. So I think that's a similar line that you're talking about there. Yeah. But yeah, no, I think those are interesting things to explore. How far we get down into getting into the finances of reconstruction, or not reconstruction, but of renovation and not. But I do think that's something that we should definitely look at, because there are. That's the thing, is it costs money. It's expensive. All right, next, go ahead, Mr. Hemlock.
Yeah, and we'll continue to reach out to sustainable development on those issues. And then finally, we discussed last time the importance of a construction and demolition debris facility that would be able to remove some of the materials that are not regularly recycled, which tends to be the concrete and the steel. So one of the things the subcommittee or the commission could do is request the county to evaluate the feasibility of a site, maybe at the eco-industrial park. And then the other option is the city could take a look at what are the minimum requirements to get a facility sited, and us be able to send waste there also. And
All right.
that's it.
I do have kind of on the set the recycling rate. I think 75% is good. I guess one of the areas, there are some things that are very easily accessible, and should we say that those need to be mandated, like cardboard or some types of plastic and other things like that, which there is a market for it. It is easy to get rid of it, and it doesn't weigh anything at all. So it really won't make a difference, but I think it probably is something we should look at mandating, because it is something that's easily recyclable, and some of these projects do produce a lot of that depending on where they are in the process. What are your thoughts on that, and kind of, is this just a 75%? I know some cities have done kind of a mix of both, where some are like mandatory to recycle, and other ones are recycle portions of it.
Yeah, it's arguably our current commercial recycling ordinance would apply to that, and we have attempted to apply that to construction projects.
Okay.
However, it has not been easy, so I think adding that to a construction and demolition debris component would be a good idea.
Okay. Is there any discussion on this? I guess we should try to put forward a motion to try to give kind of clarifying direction, so I can start working on the drafting of an ordinance on this section of the ordinance. I'm supportive of the recommendations that's been put forward, but just on the first section about the setting recycling rates, that we do mandate portions, or looking at how we can mold both the commercial ordinance and this as part of the ordinance. Commissioner Sacco.
I had one question about the deposit amounts. I know that you said that they're the highest. Compared to Lee County, how much higher are they? Are they double? Are they triple? Are they 10% higher?
They're like 4 times, I think, the amount off the top of my head. They were significant.
So I think that's a bit much in comparison then, at least relatively speaking. I don't want projects to be cost prohibitive. Whereas I think doubling the amount might be sufficient. It's still more than Lee County, but I don't know if 4 times greater then any one project, similarly in Florida, is the best way to go. And that's my feel on it. Because I'd like to stay in line enough with something that already exists that's defensible, rather than go for broke from the get-go, and then it's a lot more, is my feeling. I think if something like Lee County exists and is working, we can amplify what they're doing, but not. We can always raise the later and see how it works, but I don't feel entirely comfortable being 4 times as expensive just to do just for the deposit.
So I guess on my understanding is Lee County is just one. They don't set different rates for different dollar amounts. Is
Right.
that correct? So I think
Correct.
Okay. I do think that's one thing that we should set different rates for different amounts of a construction project, because it really does. I mean, $500 for a $30 million project makes nothing into it. So, but yeah, I think as far as like kind of the amounts, maybe having staff look back and not just kind of doing an arbitrary number, but seeing kind of what will make someone do it and not do it, versus like what is kind of the cost of doing it and of actually providing recycling on site for a project of that size, and then making sure that it's at least that. So it should be more of a penalty than not doing it, in essence, is what I think that's how we should set it. Yeah.
And possibly something a little more scalable is what I'm hearing.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so something, I think, more to scale, and more, enough that it would be a sizable fine if you don't do it, but not so much that it's cost prohibitive on any one project.
Absolutely.
Is anyone gonna put forward a motion with direction, or?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what the motion, what I want, I'm not sure.
I think a motion could be to move forward on the recommendations, except for the deposit amounts, and have staff look at those deposit amounts and figure out what would make someone actually do it, like the cost of actually recycling versus that, and have it just above that, I guess. Commissioner Ward?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I would move, I move that staff bring back an ordinance with research on the efficacy of a variety of deposit amounts.
Is there a second? All right, motion by Commissioner Ward and a second by Commissioner Sacco. I guess on the last item, having the county do a feasibility study, do we want to ask, I guess, do you want to send that to the city commission and have the city commission send over a letter kind of asking them, or is that kind of the route? Okay. So we're adding that we're going to place an item on the city commission's agenda to send a letter over to the county asking them to look into the feasibility of a C&D processing facility. All right, is there any public comment in the chambers on this item? Seeing none, any public comment online?
So if you are in the attendee list, if you would raise your hand at this time using your raise your hand feature or dialing *9. I do not see any hands raised.
All right, seeing no more discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Our motion passes 4-0. All right, next item, Madam Clerk.
Yes, that will be item 200551, discussion of single-use plastics in Gainesville, with a recommendation that the Zero Waste Subcommittee hears staff presentation and provide direction as appropriate.
All right, Mr. Hemlock.
Okay, a wide-ranging topic here, so we'll go through some of these things here. So just to kind of start off, to give you a little frame of reference with the global plastic production and where a lot of that ends up. Clearly, a good portion of it, 36%, ends up in packaging, single use, gets used, gets thrown away right away. So, and then recyclability varies depending on the type of plastic that it is. And this just next chart gives you an idea of where some of it goes: recycled, incinerated, landfill. And as we know, when plastic gets in the environment, unlike any other litter, it has a negative effect on the environment pretty much more than any others. So that's why it is a particular concern. And as you all know, the state has preemptive legislation regarding both polystyrene and film plastics. Here's the polystyrene product legislation. The last obviously preempts it, but it does give the cities some ability to regulate it as part of their business on public property and whatnot. So one of the things that the Zero Waste Plan will have is a recommendation to develop a green purchasing policy. What we think will happen is that we'll be able to create a interdepartmental team to address green purchasing policies for use within the city. This could be, both everyday purchases made by different departments, but also like vending machines. We should assure that they don't have single-use plastics and have other types of containers in them. The city attorney has provided in the backup some of their recommendations and some of their perceptions on single-use plastic bans that are allowed under state law. As you may know, for example, the city of Fort Lauderdale recently enacted an ordinance that prohibits polystyrene and other single-use plastics at different beaches and other facilities within the city. So then also the city could look at reducing single-use plastics at food service establishments. So some of those components could be requiring reusable flatware and tableware when dining in, provide accessories, not just plastics, but ketchup and napkins only on request. As we move towards a compostable community, we could possibly require that the to-go materials be in compostable containers. And another idea would be that the vendor, the restaurant or the takeout facility could charge for the accessories. That would require or cause the consumer to at least think about what they're getting when they are asking for knives and forks and other things. I mean, if you're taking it home, you probably already have ketchup at home. And then there are some other emerging ordinances that are coming out that are specifically related to plastic bottle bans. San Francisco has eliminated plastic bottle water at the airports. California is going to ban those small bottles in the hotel. Concord, Massachusetts has eliminated single-use plastic bottles, and 3 communities up in Martha Vineyards has eliminated the single-use carbonated drinks in plastic bottles. Plastic straw ban. So as you all know, the commission enacted a plastic straw ban. They very wisely included biopolymer straws since they don't degrade any quicker than plastic straws. However, there is emerging technology. There are straws out there that are made of biopolymers that do break down more quickly. And I'm sure some of you have gotten feedback that many customers aren't satisfied with paper straws. One of the things that we have been doing is monitoring is our solid waste litter crew has been collecting, as part of their regular collection of litter along the roads, has been sorting out the plastic straws. And as we've seen over time, the number of paper straws has increased over the number of plastic straws. So clearly the ordinance is working. Because of some of the issues related to the paper straws and people's not being happy about it, and staff's awareness of some straws that actually do biodegrade fairly quickly. Prior to COVID, I had developed some ordinance language changes for the commission and the subcommittee to review. There are some straws out there that do degrade more quickly in the environment, and they are often certified by independent agencies. And so that's something to consider if we want to do something to make more changes available to restaurants and whatnot. So what I've included in the backup is some more definitive language as it relates to the biodegradability of straws made from biopolymers. So that was one way we could go. Other communities have addressed this by just delegating some authority to staff to allow for some exemptions when the vendor or the manufacturer is capable of providing information that those straws do degrade rather quickly.
What is rather quickly? Or how does it compare to degrading of a paper straw versus the biopolymer ones?
There are different categories, but generally they degrade within like 80 to 90% within a 2-year period. There are some specific agencies that test them, and they have different categories also. There's a new one out now that has come since I wrote some of those ordinance changes that actually says, hey, this straw will degrade in your home compost, or this straw, will degrade on the side of the road. So that is out there, and the time frames are generally 80, 90% within 2 years. Straws can vary also. I mean, obviously the environment as it is, but also the glues and any coatings and things like that will also affect the biodegradability of a paper straw.
Thank you.
So some of the more downstream stuff that maybe we could look at or the commission could think about is supporting bottle bill legislation. Each year, the state legislature, someone submits a bottle bill, which would require a deposit on all single-use bottles and cans. States that have enacted that have higher recycling rates. It also reduces litter on the streets. People do and will pick up litter if it has value. So that's something that, that can be done to show the support and help reduce litter on the streets. And another thing, and other policies that could be enacted is that a lot of these materials that we're concerned about actually do have some value. Polystyrene does have markets when densified. For example, here I have a photo of a machine that's available that densifies the material, and the manufacturer actually does buy that material back. Plastic film, as we know, Publix and other retail places accept plastic film, and that infrastructure does exist. So there is value in that, and getting people to use that when they do get the plastic bag, since we cannot restrict them as much. And then mixed plastics in general, the markets have declined significantly since China enacted bans on exports. However, I think as a community, we should continue to monitor those markets. We're seeing increased investment in infrastructure in the United States for these kind of materials. So hopefully someday that can come back and be part of our curbside recycling program. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we can take some questions on this, and then I do think we should go over what the city attorney sent over on
Yes.
plastic bag, but let's get some discussion on this presentation first. Commissioner Sacco.
So I do like the ability to have some kind of green purchasing policy for city goods. I think, you know, we set the example in how we purchase and how we act. So I'm completely in favor of staff coming back with that policy. The plastic use on city property, I also support that. I mean, if it's an inch that we can take that isn't preempted, I think there's no reason we shouldn't. I do have concerns about other biodegradable semi-plastic straws. I haven't actually had too many complaints about paper straws. I think people are surprised, but they quickly get used to them. So I wouldn't necessarily be against changing it. I'm not for making more work for staff when this is already doing a good enough job, I think, compared to paper straws. And what was the last one? And yeah, and I think it's an obvious support for the bottle bill legislation to say that we would like that. I don't know how Tallahassee will take it, but we can always hope and try.
Unfortunately, we don't have the lobbyists of Coca-Cola and Pepsi and stuff like that, which fight it every year. So,
Oh,
and all the beer companies too. They fight it as well. Unfortunately,
but those are.
but it's worth a try. Yeah.
It's worth a try. Eventually they'll cave, right? Or Coca-Cola will run out of money. But yeah, I'm in favor of the first three suggestions. Not necessarily in favor of the straw one, just because it's extra work when we already have a method that's in place and working. That's about it. Thank you.
I have the same concerns about the changing on the straw too. I mean, 2 years is still a long time, and I've been seeing the paper straws have been, at least the ones that get thrown in front of my yard, they seem to be composting or degrading relatively quickly. And just anecdotally, I've seen a lot less straw litter, at least in front of my house, than I saw before it was enacted. I do have some questions on kind of it's kind of getting around the preemptions the state has put in place, and are we legally able to do this or not? Could we require places that do give out styrofoam containers that they have to provide styrofoam recycling and be able to send it somewhere and like actually have like a contract to have it recycled? If someone does give out styrofoam, they have to provide recycling for it for the consumers, and then the same thing on single-use plastic bags. If they're going to give out single-use plastic bags, they need to have a recycling available on site for consumers to send it. I'm wondering, is that preempted by the state of Florida, or is that an avenue we can go down to kind of go around the preemption?
It doesn't seem to be. Obviously, I'd like to confer a little bit more with the city attorney. We did discuss the utensils the other day, and we feel like we can regulate those in particular. But absolutely, we would definitely like to look into that. I think the plastic bags would be more likely to come back than the polystyrene. But obviously having infrastructure in place is a great idea.
Commissioner Sacco.
So, one question on the strategies for reduction. Are there other cities in Florida that are currently requiring vendors to charge for plastic serverware, cutlery? Thank you. Or to require compostable containers? Is there anywhere else in Florida where that's required by ordinance?
I think compostable is. The city isn't off the top of my head, but no on the charging that I'm aware of. Some of those ideas are more California-based, if you will, but I can do a little more research into that.
Okay. So I was thinking it sounds very California plastic bag, which isn't necessarily a bad thing.
Right.
I just wasn't sure if other cities in Florida had taken that initiative. But yeah, if you tell me you're going to charge me an extra $quarter because you need plastic cutlery, that at least makes you pause for a second and go, no, I have cutlery at home.
Right.
So I would not be opposed to having that. I'd also like to look into what Commissioner Santos said about, if you're going to have styrofoam plates or anything else on the premises, whether you have the services to recycle those. Same with plastic bags or anything else for takeout. My concern there, however, is I'm supportive of it, but my concern is if I got a bag with my takeout, am I going to come back to recycle the bag at the premises?
Yeah, so kind of my thoughts were it would spread around so there is different places to take it, but also, in essence, kind of to make it more difficult for places to, if you are going to do single-use plastics, it's going to be harder for the business to do that. If there's a cost that comes with it, so maybe it might force them to change over to paper or something like that and just stop using single-use plastics if we make it more difficult for them to provide single-use plastics.
I understand now. In that case, then, understanding that logic, I can understand where then the switch might be easier to go into a paper bag for your takeout, which shouldn't seem like a hard ask. But yeah, I think either moving towards a policy of the accessories upon request or charging for those. I'd like to see either research on where it's been done or at least some research on how it could be done and what staff thinks would be a reasonable request in ordinance form for restaurants and other venues to charge or make that policy upon request. Thank you.
Yeah. Commissioner Ward.
Mr. Chair, so yeah, the requiring densifiers, if I got that term right, and other recycling machines on site is a financial disincentive to providing the single-use plastics in the first place. It's going to take a long time for a densifier to fill up and meet the ROI on it for most folks. So the decision you make is isn't it cheaper to just use paper or whatever the alternative is than to do that. But I have a question about the technology itself, Mike. Do those need to be? Do you have to clean the food waste off before it goes in, or can you just, if you eat on site, can you just dump it into the densifier?
Generally, you can just dump it in. They use often a thermal process, so it burns off any of the other waste.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
All right. I guess we can jump. Can you, seeing no more discussion on this, can you jump into the city attorney's memo about what we can and can't regulate and the recommendations for plastic bags and polystyrene?
Yeah. So.
Kind of walk us through that.
Yeah. So in particular, focusing on what the city has direct control over. Generally speaking, if it's...
Do you mind throwing that up onto the screen too?
Yeah, let me...
It's actually got some relatively easy to read from.
Yeah, absolutely. We can go through it like that. See, it should have popped up, but it is no. Here we go. All right, here we go. And I'll share my screen. All right. So yeah, so they included the legislation that we had discussed a little bit earlier, and also the plastic bag part of it, which is a little more convoluted. But essentially it is a preemptive ban on plastic bags. So as I said, basically anything that the city has authority over. So contracts, including particular bans specifically within a lease or any other contract is absolutely permissible. Same thing with leases, and they give some examples of, retail and restaurant facilities that we do have control over, and they're recommending, add that as an addendum, or we could address that as these leases come up or for renewal or new ones are placed out. Same thing with buildings. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily recommend denying employees the ability to bring plastic bags or polystyrene onto the property. They're probably already reusing them anyway, so if they are out in the world, we do like to get them reused. So I think that's good. Parks, again, distribution of polystyrene, permits, licenses, so that would include any events that the city permitted or licensed. We could add polystyrene to list of banned materials. That's a tough one to enforce, I think. And again, if we're already doing things upstream to deter the polystyrene distribution, if it does make it, it might be actually a reuse of some sort. They don't recommend individuals just try going along the right of way or anything like that. And then, as I discussed, food trucks, events, and stuff like that. All of that could be used for part of the license or permit. And then the sidewalk cafes. The city does lease some space along some sidewalks. They feel that the ban could only apply to that portion of the service area. So they're not recommending that right now. So yeah, so like I said, it's basically anything the city has control over. We can contractually or permit requirement provide some bans there.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wonder if the airport is, I mean, not that that's an enormous provider, but since I saw the San Francisco airport is on there, that's a much bigger economy of scale, but it's owned by the city. I mean, the land is. So I wonder if there's a way to work that into our contractual relationship with the airport authority. So that would be something for the attorney's office to check out.
I think we could, because it's our land and it's not preempted. I mean, we can say whatever goes on the city's land. So I think that's a great Commissioner Ward on the airport. And then I do agree, kind of, Mr. Hembeck, on when you brought forward kind of not allowing employees to bring on plastic and styrofoam. I think we should move to that, but I don't know if we're there right now. So I would be kind of supportive of that change in your recommendation on that, of not putting that forward right now. But everything else, I would be supportive of us moving forward. And I'd like, hopefully, if the committee would like to have those kind of brought back to the those changes and whatever those resolutions, whatever kind of the mannerisms that those would need to be put into place to have those come back before the committee, and then we can bring those to the city commission. Commissioner Sacco?
For a motion, if you guys are, as I think kind of encompassed. So I move that we direct staff to draft a green purchasing policy. Second, draft an ordinance on plastics in public spaces and city spaces and events, with the changes that we requested, including the airport, all the leasing areas.
So I think not just an order. I think some are going to be policy, some are going to be resolutions,
Okay.
ordinance. So just kind of
Okay,
whatever
whatever
mannerism.
changes, be they ordinance or policy, that need to go into effect on plastics in city-owned and public spaces and events. Third, that we draft an ordinance on requiring recycling services for styrofoam in restaurants or other venues. And four, I think just request more on the accessory and payment of accessory items in restaurants, just more research on that, on whether it's feasible and how it could be done.
Okay.
Anything I should add?
As a motion, a second. I guess one request on the drafting of the ordinance on this, on requiring styrofoam. I'd like for us to just get a little more. I think I'm very supportive of it, but I think we need to figure out, is it requiring an actual densifier on site, or is it just requiring recycling or actual recycling of it?
Okay.
And just kind of having some more, making sure that it is
I can
legal.
modify that to make it just
Yeah,
more
and
research
then
on
if
the
we could also
topic.
add single-use plastic bags to that too.
Okay, so more research on the recycling services for styrofoam and how it would work out logistically, but for styrofoam and plastic bags on premises.
Yeah, and have that kind of,
What
can
it
we
would
do it or
look
not?
like
and
to
what would
have
be- what would it look like,
recycling
yeah.
in restaurants for styrofoam and plastic bags.
I just want one clarity so staff knows, when you're saying staff draft a green purchasing policy, we want to make sure that it covers both GRU and general
Yes,
government too.
so covering all city purchasing policies, so GRU and general government.
Is that those changes okay with you, Commissioner Ward? Okay. All right, is there any, there'd be a motion on the floor that was put in place by Commissioner Sacco and seconded by Commissioner Ward. Is there anybody in chambers who would like to speak to the motion on the floor? All right, anybody who's listening online or like to speak about the ordinance or about the motion, sorry.
Actually, I do see a hand from Assistant City Attorney Catherine Mockler first. I don't know. Did you want to call on her first?
Yeah, sorry, I can't see your hand, so just jump in here if you're staff when we're discussing things. So.
Thank you. This is Catherine Mockler, Assistant City Attorney. I just wanted to clarify that in the outline that we have, the City Attorney's Office is recommending that we do not enact any ordinances prohibiting plastic bags. We believe that we are only legally permitted to regulate polystyrene on city property or with city contracts. And if you see that plastic bags is mentioned in the list of potential areas in which we can regulate, that's a typo, and it was included in error.
Now, you're saying we couldn't regulate it in our contracts or stuff like that, and people we have you can put whatever you want into a lease, right? Like if we have like people who are renting Bodilly or Papa Top, we could in essence, a lease between us, correct?
You can regulate polystyrene in those leases, but we do not recommend regulating plastic bags.
So even in a lease is not something that we're regulating. It's just a contract between us and in essence, the renter, I guess.
We included the leases because that was taking place on city property. So the city property piece is how it ties back to the statute. The statute specifically allows regulation of polystyrene on
Okay, I got
city
you on
property.
plastic bags. You do show it there. Okay, all right. Commissioner Ward? Oh, sorry, that's not Commissioner Sacco. Apologize.
Just to make sure, all other single-use plastics would be fair game, right? The ones that aren't preempted, like plastic bags, all the other single-use would be okay?
Are you asking as far as straws and utensils?
Utensils, I can't imagine what else right now would be like a single use, but yeah, something that isn't a plastic bag.
We haven't researched it thoroughly and we would like more time to do so. However, looking at those two statutes that we looked at in this outline, there is no prohibition on regulating plastic utensils.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Ward?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, to the attorney, section 4037033 preempts us from creating city policies about plastic bags?
Yes, that is our interpretation of the statute. We do
So-
not believe it would be legally defensible to enact any ordinance or prohibition or city regulations as far as plastic bags.
So I just want to make sure that I'm not misunderstanding because it sounds remarkably absurd, and that's not without expectation, honestly, from the Florida legislature, in my opinion. We don't believe that it would be legally defensible for the Gainesville City Commission to pass a policy that says the city of Gainesville doesn't distribute single-use plastic bags.
Correct.
That's one of the craziest. I'm not attacking your opinion on defensibility. I'm attacking the statute. That is patently absurd. And I'm not sure that we should not consider a policy in that regard specifically to have to defend it. But that's just my thought. Thank you.
In other cities, I believe, have enacted internal policies. You were saying we can't have internal policies that limit the use of plastic bags, single-use plastic bags?
We do not recommend it.
All right, I am, okay. I strongly disagree with you. I don't believe that to be true, but Commissioner Sacco?
So would it be legally defensible to say that those that we have leases with have to provide recycling for plastic bags on premises?
We would have to look further into that.
Okay, because I think it goes back to the chair's point that they may not go the recycling route, but they may just switch over if it's easier to have paper instead of plastic. But so I'd like to know if that would be an option then for properties and businesses that we contract with, whether we're allowed to make that requirement of them, that they have to have recycling for plastic bags on the property, if they want to do business with us or keep plastic bags. Thank you, ma'am.
Commissioner Ariola?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My reading of the statute is as appalling as all of you, that this type of regulation or preemption would be enacted by the legislature. But I'm in agreement with the attorney's opinion. However, that isn't to say that we can't do other things. So part of the premise of an internal purchasing policy is that in our policies, we can dictate the purchasing of alternatives rather than simply banning the use of plastic bags. We simply say that alternatives would be purchased first and distributed first. That can be a policy of the city of Gainesville. And therefore, that is not directly in conflict with the legislation. As far as leases go, we can also include similar language, but we wouldn't be able to prohibit because of the preemption. So I think this is a matter of rather than focusing on what we can't do, but focusing on what we can do. And I think we can see success going down that route. But I'm looking at these recommendations for the polystyrene. I'm also in agreement, and I'm in support of the motion.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Ariola. Mr. Schwartz, you have your hand raised. Do you have something on this? No? All right. I guess that hand went down. Commissioner Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So what we're saying, we could create a policy wherein we strongly encourage first purchase when we're purchasing bags, that we strongly recommend this, and this, and simply don't mention the other, but make it very clear in the policy what the preferred options are.
Precisely, and in my view.
Because it does say, the statute says, no local government agency, or state government agency may enact any rule, regulation, or ordinance regarding use, disposition, sale, prohibition, restriction, or tax of such auxiliary containers, wrappings, or disposable plastic bags.
The key, I'm with you. The key being the mention of plastic bags at the very end.
Right. So we don't mention plastic bags. We say buy this, buy this, buy this.
Not even sure what a plastic bag is. What are we talking about?
Okay, thanks.
All right. Is there any members of the public who would like to speak to the motion?
Any public who are attending the meeting, please raise your hand using the raise your hand feature for Zoom, or dial *9 on your phone. As a reminder, if you're watching at home, you can participate in the meeting. The number and meeting ID is at the bottom of the screen, so you can call in and participate. I do not see any hands raised.
All right, thank you. The city of Orlando passed a policy that said that they couldn't use, their contractors couldn't use plastic bags and others. So I would like the city attorney to go back and look at what Orlando did and to see how they were able to do it, because I think they were able to do it. So, all right, all those in favor of the motion, say aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes 4-0. All right, next item, Madam Clerk.
I believe that was the last item.
Okay. And so our next meeting is January 5th, 2021. I think the main topic, the new topic, will be reusing in the community. And then, do you remember which topic is kind of coming? Mr. Hembach, do you know? I guess we can talk about it during review, but there probably should be a few more that are coming back for the second discussion, I believe.
The food waste ordinance, for sure,
Okay.
and maybe commercial recommendations.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Back to the agenda. Find it. All right. And with that, we are adjourned.